Idaho Matters podcast is brought to you by St. Luke's On-Demand Virtual Care, which allows patients to see a provider from their home using a computer or smartphone with on-demand care for common ailments such as a cough, sore throat, or a sinus issue. More information at stluke'sonline.org. Idaho Matters is taking a deep dive into the loss of farmland here in the Gem State. Are you a farmer? What challenges do you face as farmland shrinks in Idaho? We want to hear your story. Email us at idahomatters@boisestate.edu or leave us a voicemail using the Talk to Us feature in the Boise State Public Radio app. And then listen to our series on farming called Land and Legacy. Episodes available on Monday afternoons in the Idaho Matters podcast feed. You're listening to Idaho Matters from the studios of Boise State Public Radio News. I'm Gemma Gaudette. This Saturday, some of the leading experts in space exploration are touching down in Boise. SpacePoint is hosting a one-day event bringing together astronauts, scientists, and engineers to focus on one of the biggest questions we're facing today. What would it take to establish permanent life in space? So joining us now for a preview are Dr. Shannon Kobes-Novotnick, professor and department chair, Department of Geosciences at Idaho State University, and Cypress Van Inwiegen, Communications Program Manager for the National Radio Astronomy Observatory and SpacePoint's Director of Communication. I want to welcome both of you to the program today.
Good to be here.
Hi. Yeah, thanks. So great to be here.
And Cypress, let me start with you. Can you start out by telling us a little bit more about this event and why it's important to bring it to Boise?
Yes, absolutely. So this event is all about the real science that's happening behind some very science fiction concepts. So what would it take to explore, survive, and thrive on other planets? And again, this is something that you would think would just be in The Martian, but it's the very real science that's going on right now. And we're bringing it to Boise to make sure that this state kind of gets more of the attention that it deserves. It can sometimes be overlooked within the space industry when you think of the Pacific Northwest and everything that's going on in, for example, the Washington area. We wanted to bring these scientific experts right here to Boise to inspire people to, it's so exciting to have astronauts and scientists that are, right here to hopefully, again, inspire people and just give them a really great day that's full of something that's really exciting that maybe they've never seen before.
And Shannon, you served on NASA's joint EVA test team, right? Which prepares astronauts to conduct experiments that are planned for the Artemis 3 mission. Can you talk to us a little bit about that experience?
Oh, it was fantastic. I mean, I essentially managed to come up with a way to make my job playing professional grade floor is lava and fake astronauts, and it is amazing. And getting to spend a couple of weeks essentially working nights in the Mission Control Space Center at Johnson Space Center. We had astronauts hiking around in Arizona in the middle of the night, trying to create the weird lighting conditions, looking for volcanic rocks like what we might actually see on the moon. And we're there in that back room trying to figure out how to be able to really guide them, how to help them. Most of space exploration, we've had people up on the moon for the Apollo missions. That was really driven by engineering. We've only ever had one scientist actually land on the moon. That was Jack Schmitt in Apollo 17. And now's our chance to really be doing it again. And this is opening up a whole new opportunity for science-driven questions and really clear science-engineering partnership all the way through. And I think what's so great is that doing this iLife, Interplanetary Life workshop here, we're really trying to also get the community more involved, to be the same sort of position I was, yelling at astronauts for no, pick up the other gray rock. But how do we actually do this in a way that gets the best possible science and the best possible outcomes that'll actually change how we live here on Earth?
So, Shannon, how does your work here on Earth then translate to establishing permanent human presence on the moon or Mars?
Well, I mean, one of the things that we do a lot of out here in Idaho is really, really special for is analog testing. We've got landscapes here that are remarkably similar to what we have on the moon and Mars. And being able to have research teams come out and do that practice out here give us a chance to dry run. It's a whole lot easier to do it when you don't have to worry about the oxygen involved, when you can do it for much, much
Mm.
cheaper and be able to actually prepare so that way we can be very successful when we're actually putting up these permanent presence locations on the moon and beyond to Mars.
Cypress, tell us a little bit about your work with the NRAO and what is that, I guess?
Yeah, absolutely. So the National Radio Astronomy Observatory is a federally funded research and design center, or an FFRDC. But that's boring. Essentially, we operate these huge, incredible radio telescopes across the US and in Chile. And you're probably thinking, well, wait a minute, what is a radio telescope? Is that like the movie Contact where she listens to the stars? And that's kind of a radio, it's almost a misnomer. We as humans co-opted the radio part of the electromagnetic spectrum for our use with this show right now with radio. But really, what it is out in space is it's just another wavelength of light. So there are telescopes for every wavelength of light that you can imagine. So, for example, X-rays, microwaves, gamma rays. You have to have a weird different telescope configuration for each of those wavelengths. And so we happen to look into space and see, I'm using quotation marks here, see the invisible events in space that are occurring in the radio wavelength. So what I do at NRAO, I'm a communications program manager. So essentially, I do what a lot of the scientists don't do. I'm not a scientist. I'm a communications person. So I help with education, public outreach, running our membership program, visitor communications, and things like that.
So, Shannon, I'm curious. I've got about a minute left. For young people who are interested in space science, what advice would you give them about pursuing a career in this field?
I mean, first of all, definitely come to the Interplanetary Life event. You can meet so many of us in so many different sectors. And I think that's the big thing is to realize there's more to this than being an astronaut, whether that means you're going to be an engineer, a scientist, a communications specialist, a programmer, an accountant. We've got all this sort of need because it's about an entire space industry. And reach out to us. Come see us. If you can't come to the events, shoot us emails. There's so many of us around the state that want to help create a new generation of space scientists across the whole spectrum here in Idaho.
And Cypress, really quickly, where can folks get tickets for this Saturday's event?
Spacepoint.org. Go to spacepoint.org.
All right. I want to thank both of you so much for coming in and talking to us today. We've been speaking with Dr. Shannon Kobes-Novotny, professor and department chair at the Department of Geosciences at Idaho State University, and Cypress Van Inwiegen, communications program manager for the National Radio Astronomy Observatory and SpacePoint's director of communications. We've been talking about SpacePoint's upcoming Interplanetary Life event, which is taking place this Saturday, October 18th. You've been listening to Idaho Matters from Boise State Public Radio. I'm Gemma Gaudet.
Sources and methods, the crown jewels of the intelligence community. Shorthand for how do we know what's real? Who told us? If you have those answers, you're on the inside, and NPR wants to bring you there. From the Pentagon to the State Department to spy agencies, listen to understand what's really happening and what it means for you. Sources and Methods, the new national security podcast from NPR.